And Beth, how are you?
Up
Can you hear
and the
me
sun
okay?
isn't.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I sure can. I sure can. I sure can. Sorry, I'm kind of jumping in here, everybody. Just kind of right at start time. I was outside with my dog. I just
Hey, right
it's a
on.
big giant golden retriever, and I just got him back from the groomers yesterday. So
Oh, they're one of my
I really
favorite
have to the
retrievers.
police the rolling around in the rocks and everything, and yeah. So so I
I got to
apologize.
get a dog.
What's that?
I have to get a dog. I've got a half an acre here in town and I do a lot of food gardening and I have
Okay.
an orchard and the deer think my backyard is their home. So
Yeah. I've had that trouble with my landscaping and things like that. I have a bad squirrel problem. Quick story on that. It's really funny. When I moved into the house I'm in now, um, I had bought these really nice like custom made Adirondack chairs to put around my fire pit, right? And beautiful chairs, and they're made out of this, material that never goes bad. It never rots. I
right,
forget
like
what it's
Trek
called.
stack stuff.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. You got it.
Okay.
Yeah, you got it. So anyways, I get these chairs and living here for a while. I moved in November, and then that following spring. Well, anyways, I had gotten Drake as a puppy that same year, and about, I don't know, June, July, August time frame, I'm not really sure. I noticed all this chewing on the chairs, right? Like these teeth marks. I mean, these beautiful chairs. I'm just like, oh my gosh. And
No.
I never, for the longest time, I never caught Drake. I couldn't figure out what was happening. I figured it was him just chewing, right? Because he was at that stage and chewed some crown mold, whatever. So, anyways, for the longest time, I thought it was Drake as a puppy chewing on it. And then one morning, I got up and I'm looking right out there, drinking my coffee, and here the squirrels are chewing the living daylights out of, out of
That
these
was a,
chairs. So,
I didn't know
so
that was a thing.
yeah, I didn't either. No, I didn't either. So yeah, so if y'all get really fancy Adirondack chairs, outdoor furniture made out of that stuff, squirrels love them, I guess. So
I have quite a lot of squirrels because I have a massive walnut tree and
sure,
they love that. So,
sure,
yeah.
sure, sure. Well, good.
In fact, there's one that just lives right here outside of my window and it'll sit there and watch me when I'm doing stuff like this. So I'm like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah. Well, good. Well, we'll get rolling here. We're recording today. We'll wait for maybe people to jump on. It's early on a Saturday morning, March 14th, and my name is Judd Allen. I'm a financial planner and CDFA candidate out of Birmingham, Michigan, with J. Allen Financial, and I'm also part of the investment consulting group on the wealth management side. So. I've been doing this stuff for a little over 20 years now, 21 years. I think May will be 22nd year, believe it or not. And my divorce practice is now, building quite fast as I'm pursuing this in my business now. 10 years ago, I went through my own divorce and, went through all the pitfalls and everything like that. So, I thought, what not a great opportunity to bring this into my career and pass the value and knowledge and wisdom along. And, our whole goal today is to provide you with information, about the divorce process. I have a wonderful guest with me today, Beth Slate, who is a certified divorce coach, mediator. She's the founder of her innovative divorce solutions company. And we're going to get into some really, really good material later. That certainly I wish I would have had going through my own divorce. Um, anyways, today we're going to go through the co-parenting sides of thing with Beth here in a little bit, and we're going to talk about healthy versus high conflict dynamics. And, that ties into everywhere in any kind of relationship, really, whether it's the co-parenting aspect, whether it comes to money, on my side of things, behavior is a big thing and plays a huge role in how people make decisions, how they act, how those decisions are influenced, all that kind of stuff. So today we're going to get into some really good stuff. I'm also a second Saturday leader, and that's why we're here today is because of Second Saturday. Um, And Second Saturday is a nonprofit. It's a nonprofit free divorce workshop program that actually was founded a really long time ago, over 30 years ago, by two women in the San Francisco area in the financial services industry. And they started to see this trend of, divorce happening. And there was always one spouse in there where, they were kind of, just for the lack of a better term, clueless about how finances worked in the household and things like that. So they started wife.org and started to provide financial education seminars, i.e., Second Saturday, tying it in divorce. In the beginning, typically for women, and now it's grown nationwide. So I'm out of Birmingham, Michigan. I run Second Saturday Birmingham. And wherever you're watching from today, whether it's live or the replay, there chances are there's most likely a Second Saturday leader somewhere, somewhere in your area, if not close. So like I said, they are nationwide. So, and I am in Birmingham, Michigan, and of course we help people across state lines too. So, um, but a wonderful, wonderful organization that I connected with, and it's allowed me to partner with other professionals like Beth to bring, so much education to those going through the divorce, whatever, stage you're in. But the whole goal, I think, of all of us, and I can speak for myself, even Second Saturday here, is that we're out there to change what divorce means in America. Usually we hear the word divorce, it's a big bad word. And we know what we see on TV, these court cases battled out, this long drawn out, da 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 da. But we're here to change that. And, we want to empower people to make educated choices surrounding divorce because this is by far probably going to be one of the most monumental shifts you go through in your lifetime. It can really shake things up for good or for worse. So we're glad you're here today, or if you're watching the replay on your own time, we're really happy that you tuned in, and we certainly hope you get a lot out of it. So. I just want to kind of talk about really, and there are more resources at secondsaturday.org, of course. My website,jallenfinancial.com, and Beth's website as well, which we're going to have QR codes and all that really cool stuff that you can just take a picture of and connect with us towards the end. So stay tuned for that. Okay, but plenty of resources on the secondsaturday.com website, that will go over just kind of the overview and certain topics of divorce, which is really what I'm going to talk about in the beginning. The big star today is, of course, Beth. Uh, but I just want to talk a little bit about, kind of the divorce overview, just give you an overview of the process, different ways to approach it, and, four or five key issues that, typically come to mind, and just want to provide a little bit more clarity on that, how to kind of, start the process of walking through that a little bit and, what steps you can start taking. But like I said, the different ways to approach divorce, the first one, like what we see in Hollywood and the movies that we read, where it's battled out in court, that's litigation, where you've got the attorneys in there and you've got the judge in there, no jury, but it's a lot of time and it's a lot of money, and it can be, quite the process to go through. Statistics, say that, very little cases actually make it to court. But hey, if there's some key issues that can't be decided on, then that's the route to go, where the judge will, of course, decide for you. There's mediation, bringing in perhaps an attorney or a certified mediator, to come in and kind of work with both parties, sort of back and forth, and in sort of a negotiation deal. There's the collaborative legal process, where essentially there's a whole divorce team sitting around the table of lawyers and CDFAs and coaches and therapists and, whoever else. There are very strict guidelines around that, and that can be a cost-effective way to do it, but very strict guidelines around the collaborative legal process too, but a very effective way to go about it. Or you can do what they call pro se, where you just go do it yourself. Get it online and, or just hire a paralegal. But, we always feel that, hey, if the two of you can work it out on your own and stuff like that, why are we even at this process in the first place, right? So, um, but we've seen it done. And, that's why we do these seminars. That's why I bring other professionals on, like Beth, to say that if you are going to do it yourself or a cost-effective way or what have you, here are some things to consider and some things to not to consider. So, but just kind of doing it on your own, winging it, a lot of times can lead to very unfair settlements and things like that. So, there's going to be child issues if there's, of course, minor children involved. Things like custody. There's two types of custody: legal custody, physical custody. Physical custody being really the parenting time. The legal custody being just that. You're the two legal parents of the children. So, things to consider, how the schedules are going to be shared, how they're going to be decided, the rotation they go on. Are you week on, week off? Are you every 2 days, every other weekend? So, there's a million different ways to shake up and think about that. There's also child support. So, every state has child support guidelines, and but determining, how long that is going to go on for, how much. And of course, what expenses are not covered by child support that that divorcing couples with minor children need to come to terms on. And I can give you a great example. I have three boys. Well, my oldest is now 22, so he's done with his athletics, but we were very blessed with very healthy athletic boys. And there's all the soccer schedules and all that, all that kind of stuff. And school, these guys grow like weeds and eat me out of house and home. And, there's school clothes to share. I mean, so all those kinds of things. And that's where professionals like myself, like Beth, really, really bring our value to the table because of our experience. And, we can bring those things to light. Because a lot of times I've talked to um, um, people that after the papers have signed and we go through and it's like, holy smokes, this is, it sounded great in the beginning because they wanted to get it over with, but now reality hits and real life is rolling and, it's not working out the way they planned. So, everything really needs to be discussed in those kinds of things. So plenty of more resources on child issues on the websites, of course, explaining support and things like that. Could be alimony involved, there again in a divorce, how long will the alimony be paid? You know, how is it going to be determined? The earning potential of, one of the ex-spouses. If you have a couple where, mom stayed at home most of the time, those are things that are taken into consideration. I mean, that's a full-time job as it is, but what is that person's ability to go out there and maybe earn a living to maintain the certain, same standard of lifestyle, things like that. So, alimony isn't taxed. It used to be, and it used to be a write-off and all that kind of stuff. But those are going to be some issues too, where if there was a primary breadwinner, if there's two, working professionals, two engineers, working at Ford Motor for 25-year career, they've got their own incomes and retirements and pensions. So, a situation like that, maybe alimony isn't really that big of a discussion or may even be required. So, now, property division, that's the big thing, right? There's marital property and separate property. Typically separate property is anything that's kind of brought into the marriage that you owned before, anything that kind of accrues and gains or gifted while married would be considered something like marital property. Okay. Real estate being the biggest one. The home is probably going to be one of the biggest assets that needs to be decided on. Okay. So there are other professionals, that help us with that we bring in teams. But do you keep the house? Does one spouse live there? Do they just sell the house altogether, take the proceeds, and go on their separate ways? So the house is a huge decision, and there again, the wealth of information that Beth is going to bring us today, I think certainly ties in there because with the decisions on whether or not to keep the home, a lot of times it's emotional. It's a very emotional driven decision without taking into account what happens if you lose two trees in a storm and they don't hit anything and you got to pay $15,000 out of pocket. Those are the realities, or something like that, right? So something insurance doesn't cover. Are you able to heat and cool a 4,000 square foot home? So we got to bring some of those kind of realistic situations into play here. Retirement accounts are going to be another big one. If they're 401ks or pension plans, IRAs, Roth IRAs, investments, things like that, those all need to be considered and be divided too. And that's where somebody like me, of course, comes into play, understanding the certain taxation on distributions and, quadros could be involved if there's a 401k or a pension plan. Those can only be divided by what they call a quadro. And a quadro is a fancy term for a qualified domestic relations order. And that is just a document that should be, done at the very beginning, sent to a plan administrator, outlining the division and things like that. So any business ownership would require some forensic accounting there and business evaluation. But there again, kind of like the house, right? Maybe one spouse keeps the business. Do they sell the business altogether? You have a situation where you have a married couple for a long, long time. Maybe they've been working together for 25 years. So that could be a really big factor there too. Do they really want to continue to work together after the divorce papers are signed? So any personal property, belongings, artwork, things like that, collectibles, and then of course the debt, how that's going to be divided up too. Okay. So all those come about in sort of the discovery process and things like that. Where somebody like me, our job is not to give it legal advice, but certainly to prevent a multitude of scenarios, how it looks on the financial picture, taking all these things into account. Okay. All right, so kind of back to the house a little bit, taxation, there's those things to consider too. If there's, like that major asset like the house, if it's sold, if there's capital gains, who gets taxed, what is exempt, things like that. So any individual can exclude up to $250,000 of gain on the sale of a house, and filed jointly, you can do up to $500,000. Now, there's some typical rules there, like you have to live in the house or use the house 2 out of the last 5 years, things like that to qualify for that exclusion. If there's a situation where the individual keeping the house has a significant other who moves in and things like that, they can certainly kind of piggyback on those times and qualify for that exclusion if the house is sold, a little bit down the road. But things like I talked about already that we have to really, really consider, beyond, we want to stay in the neighborhood for the kids. It's, can you really afford to keep the home? Let's be realistic, and if not, as an option, maybe you could own it jointly, which, there again, takes a lot of consideration, too. But, that might sound great at first, but we don't know where everybody's gonna, what path everybody's gonna walk after that divorce is done, and what routes they're gonna go. So owning the home jointly for some time may not be the best situation, but it is an option. All right. Retirement plans, of course, there's Social Security income, certain stipulations there, whether or not you qualify for your ex-spouse's Social Security. Typically, that really only qualifies in the later years, past 65. Both people have to be 65 collecting things like that to be qualified for Social Security. But, that is a stream of income that, would need to be considered. Talked about retirement plans, probably going to be the second or third biggest asset if there's no business really involved, but those quadros need to be done to provide qualified plans. Now, the difference between qualified plan and an IRA, for example, qualified plan is going to be under your company sponsor. So your pension plan, your 401k plan, deferred compensation plan, restricted stock unit plan, all those kind of things are going to be what they consider qualified plans per se. All right. IRAs, individual retirement accounts. That is money that you've done on your own. Maybe you've rolled over from a previous 401k or an employer, something like that. But that is money that's in an account under your name, under your control. And that does not require a quadro. The only thing that an IRA really requires is the divorce decree that is sent to the custodian, and then custodian can then split the assets into, another IRA of a recipient's name, things like that. If done correctly, under Section 1041, transfer between of property, pursuant to a divorce, there aren't any taxable consequences there. Only if distributions were taken at some point, like before the account was set up or something like that, would that receiving spouse be subject to any kind of taxes or penalties. So anyways, things to definitely think about. You don't know your situation, that when you get these retirement assets, when they're split, do you need the money? So taxation is a big, big thing, and penalties, to take into consideration. Okay. All right. So that was the fast pass over the divorce process. You can go to my website. You can go to secondsaturday.com, and there's a plethora of resources. We do these webinars on the second Saturday of every single month. So, we've had people attend 2, 3, 4 of these sometimes. So, that now leads us to our guest, Beth Slate. She is the founder and CEO of Insight Divorce Solutions. I connected with Beth, gosh, I don't know, 5 months ago, something, I'm
I
not
think
sure.
so. Yeah.
And boy, we hit it off right away. And, both of our kind of our journeys and our past and what we're trying to do here in our respective qualifications and things. We had to do this. We just had to do it. So
Absolutely.
here we are. Beth, welcome. Thank you so much for I'm on East Coast time. You're Central, or are you more?
Oh no, I'm on the West Coast. We're
Yeah,
still
you're West
black
Coast.
over
So,
here. Yes.
so yeah,
It's
yeah.
early.
So thank you for getting up so early and being with us today.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's my second time. I tried it last week and nobody was here because I had the wrong date. So it's all good. It's all good. Thank you very much. So we're here. I'm here today to talk about children and how that affects your life moving forward and co-parenting. Because I think one of the things that we think often is that, we have children, they're 18, and then either they're in college or they're moving out or they're, whatever. But no, you will co-parent for the rest of your life. You will be a co-parent with that other parent for the rest of your life. So the things that you will encounter don't just stop, at a certain point. So if there's any way to improve or to invest in your children in this process, there is no higher priority. So, do you want to move to the next slide? Can
Yeah,
you?
sure.
Yeah,
No,
let's do
yep. You
that.
just tell me what to
Yeah.
do.
Okay. So first, I'll just share with you, as we don't really talk about my background, but I will just tell you really quickly. I have been in this industry for a couple of decades, and I've been a parenting instructor and a guardian ad litem. And for those that don't know, a guardian ad litem is somebody that is appointed by the judge when parents are fighting over the kids and have real concerns with the other parent. The judge would hire me to come in and do an investigation, and I would basically blow people's lives up, talking to them for hours, doing home visits, talking to doctors and therapists and teachers and family members, and looking at police records and all of those things, in addition to talking to the children. And then I would make recommendations as to what should happen with the children's time and residential schedule. So I have seen the worst of the cases that you could possibly imagine. But I will tell you that the number one thing that the court comes across is just straight out high conflict co-parenting. It's not about drugs or alcohol. It's not about anger management or even DV. It is the struggle that parents have with each other and the attitudes that they bring with them. So, healthy co-parenting is going to involve the two of you working together and flexibility and a little bit of faith and trust in that other parent's ability to parent, and a whole lot of grace, right? One of the things that comes up that I think is probably the most common complaint.
No.
Exact same thing. And they think that that's a problem the other parent has instigated or is causing that problem. I'm going to share a story with you.
Sure.
So, back when my kids were little and I got divorced, they weren't that little. I'm, like elementary, late elementary school. Uh, my ex and I got divorced, but because he was driving a truck and out of town 4.5, 5 days a week, we decided to do something called nesting. This is not for everyone, trust me, but uh, we both lived in the house. So
Hmm.
when I uh,
I've heard this. Yeah.
Right. So when he was out of town, I was in the house parenting the children for 5 days a week. Then
Mhm.
I would go to a studio when he had the children and he was there. Okay. So we
Sure.
each had time, but the kids lived in one house. I was 38 years old and I am a competent woman, but I cannot tell you how stressful it is to
Um,
live in two houses. Now, we did this for 3 years.
sure.
So I forgot clothes. I forgot toothbrushes. I forgot papers I needed for whatever I was doing. There was different beds and I slept differently. And I
Sure.
had
Sure.
38 years of conflict resolution and figuring things out. When
Sure.
your children are little, they don't have that. So
Mhm.
that dysregulation that you sense is very, very common because it's hard to live in two houses,
Yeah.
right?
I can
So,
understand that. Yeah.
right. And so we just want to kind of take that right off the table. Now, there are times when we need to take a closer look at it, but rarely. That's just a common thing.
Hmm.
So what is high conflict co-parenting? Well, we are always the hero of our own story,
Hmm.
right? But the truth is that when you're dealing with your ex-spouse, it is hard to be the best version of yourself.
Sure.
So these are just a few of things that you can watch out for, whether it's yourself or you can notice this in the other parent. And that is, do you have frequent arguments or battles? You're constantly going back to court to get the court involved because you want to change in residential schedule or
Sure.
whatever that is.
Sure.
Arguments can often happen during exchange times.
Hmm.
It's already a stressful time for kids. They're getting handed off from one parent to the other. This is a time when you need to be at your absolute best.
Sure.
But this is a place where it happens. So, however, you need to get to where this is not where you air those out is really important.
Hmm.
Second is there's just a lack of trust or respect.
Yeah.
And those are two very different things. It is hard to respect somebody that you don't trust,
Sure.
right? So, as a guardian ad litem in the past, one of the things that I have seen frequently So, and this is a tough one, is that oftentimes when you have been in a relationship where you are the parent who has provided the most parenting when you
Mhm.
were married, your concern is that the other parent who really wasn't that involved is not going to know how to parent. And there's that lack of trust piece. And
Sure.
I will just tell you right now, in the majority of cases, not all, that parent will step up. They step up and they learn. And they may do things a little differently than you do, but it takes you stepping out of the picture for them to actually step up. And we hate that. That's stupid. It shouldn't be that way, but it does happen. And so trust can build there.
Sure.
Respect looks like not just to your children, but to them, and allowing them to have some freedom to do things that they want to do, and knowing that they are not going to put your children in danger, right?
Sure.
Okay. Probably one of the worst offenses in high conflict co-parenting, and I don't care how good you think you are, this is a slippery slope on this one, is using your children to relay messages to the other parent. Hey, tell your dad you've got soccer practice at 11
Mm.
on Saturday when you're at his house. Not appropriate, right? Not appropriate. Uh, Telling them that you're going to go on vacation, you want to take the kids to Disneyland. Go tell your dad this is what we're going to do. These are the dates. Find out if those dates work. No, not okay.
Yeah.
Right? Those are
A
the
lot of
most
responsibility on a child.
so much so. And
They're not ready for it. Yeah.
it's not even like it's not the messages that are negative. There's nothing inherently wrong with what
Sure.
they're saying. It's the fact that you are asking that child to do the work that you are meant to do. I have a client was who was using that child to tell the other parent to request time with the parent, to share what mom was, and they were like 8 years old.
Yeah.
And they just thought that
Wow.
they were, empowering their kid to know when they wanted to spend time with the other parent. And I was like, that is never anything a child should handle.
Sure. Sure.
So emotional manipulation and gatekeeping. We know what manipulation looks like. It can be subtle things like, well, your dad never shows up, right? Well, I hope they actually show up this time, right? You never want to manipulate your child like that, because that is really what you're doing. You're saying, you are putting a doubt into their mind whether they're going to be there or not. Gatekeeping, oh, this is another big one. Gatekeeping is something where you are going to find every excuse for that other parent to not get children on their time. And you'll use things like, oh, well, they're sick. So they should just stay home. Unless that's something that you both agree would be better for that child, the other parent can take care of that child, right?
Sure. Sure.
Something like, I don't like it when they spend time with that person. So if your ex-spouse is going to be around these people, I'm just not going to let them come. Or
Sure.
I don't like the activity that they're doing, or I don't approve of the house that they're living in. Well, there's so many things that we do. The other one that we do is we will subtly start to fill up the children's time schedule when they're with the other parent. Well, they've got, Johnny's birthday party to go to, and it's all day on Saturday. Well, you know what? That's that other parent's time. You need to coordinate with them,
Sure. Sure.
right? So there's
Sure.
lots of ways that this shows up. And you could be like, well, all the kids are going to this party and it's his best friend. And yeah, but
Yeah.
it's subtle,
Right.
but you got to work with that other parent and be respectful of their time.
And
And
that
then, of
makes
course,
sense. You were talking about the cracks in the trust and the respect and, things like that. So, simple conversations aren't so simple. Right?
they're
Yeah.
not. They're absolutely
Yeah.
not. And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
so one
All
thing that
that
I
gets in
wanted
the
to
way of, very, very simple conversation and solutions.
one
Yeah.
of the things I wanted to point out was when you talked about custody in the beginning. Do you know courts are shying away from using that word?
Hmm.
They use residential schedule or shared parenting time. And the
Yeah.
reason they do that is language informs our reality.
Yeah.
And custody is something that
Pretty
is
edgy. It
very,
is kind of an edgy term almost. It's
it
a kind of an
is
edgy, like, whoa, so legal here.
even worse.
It is,
What's
but
even worse? Custody brings to mind, this is mine and I own it.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So when we're fighting, it's like I hear people say all the time, they get all, I want full custody. Well, guess what? You don't own your kids. So custody is not a thing anymore. What we do is we figure out where they're going to spend their time
sure,
because they're always going to be your children. But putting in mind that it's custody makes it feel like something that you automatically want to get as much of that as you possibly can because it's yours.
sure, sure.
And so, even in
Makes sense.
decision making, right, custody may be a legal term, but don't think of it in your day to day as I have custody, so I get to make decisions, right? What you want to say is, okay, typically the court divides that into two arenas, major decisions and minor decisions.
Mhm.
And in major decisions, if it is even remotely possible, you should be making those together.
Sure,
The
sure,
day-to-day decisions, should they go to Johnny's birthday party? Should they, yeah, go to bed at this time? Should they watch this show? How many times
yeah,
do they brush their teeth a day? Great. That how they do their homework, those day-to-day decisions can absolutely be yours. Where we see some of the bigger
sure,
conflicts is when it comes to education, where should they go to school? And
yeah, yeah,
religion can be a major decision, or health. Should
okay,
they not? I've seen parents fight over vaccinations, right?
sure, sure, yeah. Very
But
hot topic, very, very hot topic.
very much so, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So there's a lot of ways that conflict can show up. Um, but there are some things that we can do to minimize that. And the first thing that I want to just put as a basis for all of your co-parenting is y'all are divorced. You're divorced because you couldn't, this didn't work anymore,
sure,
right? Okay. If that person was capable of coming to the table and doing what you needed them to do in a way that worked for you, you'd still be married, likely. So, the biggest number one mistake that causes so much frustration for a parent is they seem to just throw that out and forget.
sure,
So, that other parent may not ever get to the point where they can work with you. And so expecting that they are going to all of a sudden drop all of those toxic behaviors and work
sure,
well with you as a parent, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So you have to figure out what can you do that'll make a difference?
sure.
And so how can you safeguard your children? So let's go to the next slide and I'll kind of show you some pointers there. Oh, we're not there yet. Okay. So we already know how this shows up in our kids, right? Anxiety, depression, behavioral issues, academic struggles, lots of things. We see it in the kids. We don't want to spend too much time on that. We'll go on the next one. Okay, so how do we work with somebody that isn't working well with us? Right? We've already figured out, okay, here's the things we need to not do. How for ourselves to not be the person that is high conflict. But oftentimes, if this is something that's important to you, you want your children to grow up healthy and you want them to have good relationships with that other parent. What can you do? Well, the first thing you can't do is change that other parent. So you want to prioritize your child's emotional security. How do you do that? Number one is to keep that conflict away from your child. What does that look like? Well, easy. Don't talk about their other parent badly in front of them.
Mhm.
Don't talk badly about that other parent when they are within 1 mile of you. And I say that, and I am dead serious. I mean,
Sure.
you know this, Judd. You're standing in the yard, you're talking to the neighbor. They're like, hey, how are things going? And the kids are playing in the yard, right? They're riding their bikes back and forth. And you get into a discussion about what your ex, the latest shenanigans they were doing, and how stupid that was. And you
Sure.
think the kids aren't listening.
Sure.
They're listening.
And it's not like you can ask them to ride their bikes a mile down the road for a minute.
Exactly. Or,
Right?
you're on the phone. Kids are watching TV. You're on the phone talking to your best friend. You're like, oh, I cannot believe this. Blah, blah, blah. He did this and then he was doing. They're listening. I don't care if they're in the bathroom. I don't care if they're in their bedroom. They can hear you on the phone.
Mhm.
So it's not just talking to them, it's talking to other people when they are anywhere
Sure.
around you.
Sure.
Kids are so hyper aware. They can multitask, trust me. And you're like, how did they hear that? How did they know?
Yeah.
And the problem with that is kids think they fully are and belong to you
Hmm.
and fully are and belong to their other parent. They identify, good, bad, or ugly, they identify with that parent. So when you talk bad about that other parent, they feel like you're talking bad about them and it hurts them. And they don't feel safe to be with that other parent.
Sure.
It feels so innocuous because you're just having a conversation with your friend,
Yeah, makes
but
sense.
it's super, super powerful. And it's in a powerful in a negative way.
Sure.
So
Wow.
that's just outside of the kid. The other is, I mean, this should be a no-brainer. You never badmouth the other parent to your children.
Right.
I will tell you, I was the parent who would never, ever say anything bad about the children's other parent. And one day, my son was acting up. He was like junior high. It's probably the only day he ever acted up. He was like, he's a great kid. And I got so frustrated with him that I went, oh, you're just like your father.
Oh,
And I
sure.
immediately went, oh, you know what? You know what? I am so sorry. That is bad. Let mom go take a break for a minute. And I came back and I told him and I explained to him how great his dad was, even though I didn't think so, and how sorry I was, and that was totally unfair to him.
Sure.
I still think about that day because it just came out. And I can guarantee you there'll be at least one instance where you will do that. Own it.
Sure.
Own
Sure.
it and repair it right there.
Yeah, I've got a question in that, in that regards in
Yeah.
those situations, because you're right. I mean, it can be in the heat of the moment. Who knows what we've got on our minds or
Right.
whatever, and just blah, blurts out. What would be some practical tools to amend that? If you do
Yeah.
say something, I mean, love what you said. What are some practical
Mhm.
tools to kind of in when I ask this, so the child, it's not like, oh, it's just another sorry. And it just keeps happening,
Right. Right.
happening, so it's not another sorry. But what are some practical tools, parents can take that, gosh almighty, it just slips out in the car on the way to school,
Right.
soccer, in the yard, whatever, you know? How do we write that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, I think it differs um,
Mhm.
based on how you communicate with your kids. I'm a big person on I own it and then I let them help me be accountable,
Oh, great. Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So I will tell the children, listen, your dad loves you and he is a good person. And that was very unfair of me to do that.
Hmm.
So
Great.
if you see me bad mouthing him or anyone else for that matter,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Then you call mommy on that because that's not how I want to be. That's not the person I want to be.
Sure.
And so I think, again, um, you don't just say it, you change your behavior,
Right.
right? So that's where it's not just another sorry. You make sure that that doesn't happen again,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
I also think that having conversations in that moment about sometimes we have big emotions, right? And we say things that we don't mean.
Sure.
And so,
Sure.
we need to make sure we understand that's harmful behavior. That's not how we want to be. We're human, right? Um, and then, you ask the kids, do you need anything else from me? What do you need me to do?
Sure.
Kids are
Sure.
kids are they're so smart,
Yeah. Yeah.
they know how to ask. They say, "Mommy, don't talk like that." You're right. I should never do that, and I'm not going to. And here's why: because I know that your dad loves you, and I know that he has all these great qualities, and all of us are human, and I should never do that. It's just a conversation, and then you just make sure it doesn't happen again,
That's great.
right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. Yeah, I like that, turning that into, a very teachable moment. Those moments can be very,
Oh
very
yeah.
teachable moments. And, you know, regulating the emotions and teaching our kids to say, listen, sometimes they get a little unregulated, and
We all
these
have
are
big
these are the
emotions.
ways, these are the I've got teenage boys. I know they say stuff they don't mean. Especially on chore day, But
Oh yeah.
but
Oh yeah.
it's
Honestly, I think that was what the thing was. It was about chores and
yeah, totally. And how do we regulate our, teaching them
yeah.
how to regulate, their emotions a little bit,
Hmm.
because listen, life is going to be there's going to be conflict anywhere, and it may not have anything to do with your mom and I or anything, but it could be with
Right.
a friend, it could be at school, it could be rejection, it could be anything, so yeah, I really like that, using those moments, leveraging those moments is a very, very teachable moment, no matter how good, bad, and different, justified, rational it may seem at the time, right? But
Right.
but being
Yeah.
able to
Yeah.
teach, that's
So
great.
another one that will come up is when the other parent is doing something that you feel is not good for your kid, right? And
Sure.
and the child is old enough to have conversations, and the other kid is your child is really upset. It's okay to have a conversation with them and explain again. You want to seem as understanding of their emotions as you can be, but never exacerbate the problem.
Yeah.
Well, your dad and this, or your mom is always gonna, no, 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 right? Say, I understand that. Let's talk about what you can do in those situations, right? Again, you're learning, they're learning. We want to leave room for our humanity, but that trust and respect can be really hard when you don't really have it. It's sort of a fake it till you make it. Empower your kids as best as they can in
Mhm.
situations like that, and then go work with the ex if you can. If you can't, again, there's other options.
Great.
So let's go on to the next slide.
All right.
Okay, so here's some more things that are now we want to talk about dealing with the ex themselves, right? So again, one of the things that happens, and the Gottmans are the probably the most world-renowned marriage and family therapists in the world. They are phenomenal. And one of the things they talk about when you're in a high conflict situation is to slow things down.
Mm.
Slow it down, because when you speed up, what you're doing is you get into that nervous state where you're fight or you're flight or you're freezing or you're fawning, and you get into
Survival
that space
mode.
that is not, you are not working with your executive functioning. So take a breath. The number one tool when you are dealing with a high conflict co-parent is do not react to them in the moment. If you get triggered by something that's happening,
Mm.
take a step away. 1 minute, 10 minute, an hour, whatever you need until you can access that logical, calm part of your brain. Because
Put the
the other
rubber band
thing,
on your wrist and snap yourself if you have to,
right,
right?
punching bags,
So,
yeah,
yeah, don't go
yeah.
there. Don't go there.
you know, chocolate, whatever you need to get
Sure,
that
sure, sure,
dopamine hit. Yeah.
sure.
Honestly, that pause is your number one tool. And it's not, I have here, will this help my child or hurt them? Let's just take a breath so you don't react, right? Because I'm a bit of a brain nerd. And so I love, when we talk about how does our brain work and operate our operating system,
Sure.
we
Me
have
too.
these well-defined ruts. They say this, I do this,
Yeah.
right? And to break that cycle, we have to stop and then not go down that well-worn path. I'm going to give you a quick example. It's not related to kids, but it's the perfect example I use in all of my with my clients, which is my ex was very passive aggressive. And so I had been raised in an environment where you reacted to the message under the message, right? So you make dinner, you've been at your job all day, and then you're taking a break before you do the dishes, and the spouse goes, I guess I'll do the dishes. Now, the message under the message is, you're lazy. Why aren't you doing the dishes? I have to do the dishes for you. Right. And so you react and you say, no, no, that's fine. I'll get him. Just give me a minute. Right. Okay. So I'm in therapy and my therapist tells me, why do you do that? Why do you react to that message? Because that's what he's really saying. And he said, no, it's not. And
Mm.
stop reacting to that. So he tells me what to do. He says, I want you to just respond to the top message, not the message underneath. So a few days later, that's the story that happens. Well, I guess I'll do the dishes. Now I've worked all day just like him, right? I've made dinner and he's fussing about having to do the dishes. I so badly wanted to say, no, I'll just do the dishes. And instead I went, okay, thanks. And then I went into the bathroom and threw up.
Two of the hardest words to say.
I just
Okay, and thank you.
panicked. I panicked. I went to the bathroom. I threw up. I was like, oh my God,
Yeah,
And the
yeah.
thing was, so I go back to counseling and the therapist goes, well done. I
Mm,
want you to do it again. And I went, oh my God. And he said, it's still going to be crappy and it's still going to feel like that, but it's going
yeah,
to feel this much better.
yeah.
And I'll tell you, I love passive aggressive people now. They stop immediately with me because I don't respond the
Mm,
way that they want me to. So when we talk about those well-worn pathways where you guys have been married, you've had children, you've developed a rut in
sure.
how that conflict is going to happen. If you will take a step back and stop that process, oftentimes conflict will de-escalate because you don't feed it.
Mm.
Okay. So, the next one is the third voice exercise. And I think this
Oh,
is, oops,
oh,
sorry.
did you want me to go back? Sorry.
Yeah,
I thought
go
you said
back.
next.
Back one. Yeah.
Ooh, there
Oops,
we
too
go.
far. There we go. So
There we
I
go.
say here that yes, every child is listening. Pretend like every child is listening. Yes, that's a good one. I've got an even better one. The higher your conflict is. And I tell people this from the beginning of your divorce. I want you to believe with all of your heart that every word out of your mouth and every action you take, the judge is standing next to you. The judge.
Hmm. Hmm. Sure.
Because uh, so often now we have so many ways to confirm and back up what is actually happening through video, through audio, through written communication, through records. But even when you're just having conversations, I want you to use the standard of what would the judge think if I said this to my kids? What
Right.
would the judge think if I did this thing and I withheld the children because the ex was 30 minutes late? Oh, too
Mm-hmm.
bad you missed your window,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? That's pretty powerful because the truth is that there's no there that doesn't get play in the courts. When you
Sure. Sure.
start, when you think that nobody's going to hold you accountable, right? So, what would the judge say about that? And then the last one, which is probably the one that will take you the hardest to learn, but is over the long run will be the most effective tool you have in de-escalating conflict with the other parent. And it's a process developed by Bill Eddy, who is a family psychologist, who is like the person in the world on family conflict. And it's in communicating with your co-parent, be brief, be informative, be friendly, and be firm.
Mhm.
That means that when you get that text that says, rant, 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 we have a soccer match on Sunday, but you never get there. And are you going to be there on time? And is he even, or can you even get his stuff? Because you forgot his stuff last time. You don't react to all the emotional pieces. All you're going to react to is, yes, I will be there and
Mm.
he will have all the equipment that he needs.
Sure. Yeah.
If you can't quite make friendly, that's okay. Just be objective. Don't respond to the emotional messaging. Don't go into trying to convince the other parent
Mm.
of why they need to believe you or why they need to do it. Just set your boundaries, be brief, be informative, be friendly, be firm.
Yeah.
That's a
That's
hard one to
great.
learn.
That's
Get
great.
better.
I think if I see the acronym BIF, and I
But
kind of
yeah,
my head kind of immediately went to you remember the movie Back to the Future, the
I was
guy
gonna
Biff in
say,
the
Beth,
movie.
yeah,
That's the
we
only
went,
Biff I know, so I can imagine Biff from Back to the Future sitting next to me every time.
yeah. How do I want to deal with Beth? Absolutely. Be brief, be
Sure.
informative. Yeah. And then
Sure.
next slide.
Yeah, absolutely.
When those are not enough, these are four apps that are really, really good in helping high conflict relationships. We'll take our Family Wizard is probably the most well known. And what it is it is a way of communicating and working with the other parent. It does everything from so all of your communications are in writing. You have one shared family calendar. All of the doctors and teachers' information go onto this app. It will is it GIS where it tracks where you are when you go to do exchanges? When you actually show up, it will do that. It'll date stamp everything. It'll time and date stamp all of your communications. It is a great way to track and be objective, but also contain where you're going to communicate. Any one of these apps are great, and you can go on their site. Yeah, it's really really helpful. And then the last
Sure.
slide here. Okay, parallel parenting. Again, parallel parenting is not great. It's not the best that we can offer our children, but it is adequate when you have a parent that is so resistant, there's just no working with them at all. In that case, you can still be brief, informative, friendly, and you can still have those boundaries. You can communicate through the app, but parallel parenting is based on the understanding you aren't going to co-parent in any way, so that every parent parents the way they want to in their home. You only communicate in writing. You don't call, you don't text. You probably use something like the Family Wizard. You don't go to the same events. If, Katie has a band concert, one of you is going to go, whose ever time it's at.
Mm.
You do not discuss your personal lives. You don't know about what's going on with the other homes. Uh, your children do not take their belongings with them. That can cause a lot of unnecessary conflict in families.
Sure.
I sent a sweater with them and we didn't get it back. Nope. They have two sets. Now imagine as a child how hard that can be,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Another one is you should never exchange at your homes. So what you wanted, because that may not feel safe in a high conflict situation. McDonald's, Walmart parking, and worst case scenario, you exchange in a police
I've
parking lot.
I've heard of those situations. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. I just saw an example of one that was really, really interesting, and it's something that can come up if you're in high conflict. So dad is going to meet mom. Mom has the kids. She's going to give them to dad. You don't know the context of this, but dad gets out and he is videotaping this exchange. And he's staying at his car. The impression I got was that maybe mom had been fomenting a lot of conflict because he's videotaping this because he's not feeling comfortable about maybe what she's telling other people is happening.
Sure.
And when she gets out of the car and she sees this, she refuses to give the kids to him and starts videotaping him back. And
Yeah.
then nothing happens. The exchange does not happen.
Sure.
So in cases like that, if you get out and that other parent is videotaping you, you consider you're doing it for the judge.
Yeah.
Great. Feel free to use it. Brief, informative, friendly, firm. Make sure that you ensure that that handoff goes okay.
Sure.
Right?
That's
Do
very
not react. Whatever they need to do, they need to do. You can handle it later. And then the last part is just recognize, like I said, when kids go from one house to the next, there's gonna be a time to regulate. That does not mean that the other parent is bad. I've actually seen this to be true. Child gets in the car and says, I'm hungry. Dad didn't feed me. Dad just fed them a full meal an hour before they got in the car. And they will, it's just
That's
something kids
code. Can we get
do.
ice cream on the way home?
Uh-huh, right? But kids will literally tell you they didn't get fed when I've like been there and watched the other parent feed
Sure.
them, but
Sure.
it's sort of that way of connect with me and they don't have all the tools.
Yeah.
So just know that when things like that come up, you be the stable parent, you be the one that's going to be okay. You don't be the reactive one. And here's the last thing I want to end with. When you're in a high conflict co-parenting and you can't control that other person and it's hard on the kids, if both of you are that way, the reactions and what happens to your kids, you see behavioral problems, you see school problems, you see a host of things that will come up in the kids. But study after study after study shows that if you, one parent, can provide a safe home that has good routines, and you communicate in healthy ways with your kid, and you communicate to the other parent or about the other parent in healthy ways, those bad outcomes
Yeah.
primarily disappear.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Your kids will be okay. It
Yeah.
just takes one parent. So you be that parent.
Yeah. Yeah, to provide that clarity and, just that grounded structure that's really, really all they need. And
Yeah.
yeah. Well, we're boy, this is great stuff. I've gotten so much out of it. It's so much out of it too. I mean, it's that's why I love this. It's like, we're in the divorce business and we're professionals and things, and we're still human too, And I
Yeah.
love having guests like you on.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love having guests like you on because I get out of, if I'm getting a lot out of it, I know our audience is going to get so much more out of it too. I see you have one more slide here, and I'm kind of
Okay.
jumping ahead because I know
Yep.
everybody wants to know the last piece. How do we take care of ourselves?
Oh, yeah. Next one.
What are some small wins, you could give us that we can, if we're somebody who struggles with routine, that we can just take small steps, or if we're, the routine pro and there's still cracks in that system somewhere, that we could improve on. Yeah.
I think honestly, what I see is that, especially if you're a parent, and I think a lot of parents will be cluing in today, is that you just went from, having two people there for the kids to having one. Single parenthood is hard.
Sure
And
is.
you have to resource yourself. We hear that in the airplane, put your mask on first before you
Yeah.
put your kids' mask on. If you are consistently not sleeping,
Great
not
analogy.
feeding yourself, not doing the things that you need to take care of yourself, you will not have the energy to do the right thing at the right time. So whether that's you know uh, basic sleep, or it's time with your community and your support network. You need to do that because that is the fuel to deal with high conflict.
Yeah. It's great. That's great. I love that analogy of the oxygen mask in the airplane. I mean, we can think of our if we can think of our house, our world as a single parent and our kids, we're in the airplane together, and it's put your mask on first. It's real simple. Just put my own mask on first. That's
And
it.
as parents, we
That's it.
don't.
Just put
We
our own
we
mask on first. Yeah.
consistently will
Yeah.
give to the kids, and back when I studied childhood and culture when I was in grad school, the French do really well with this. They take care of themselves. They don't lose that sense of self-investment, and their kids are fine. They're fine. They're great. That extra 30 minutes that you would give to the kids that would just drain you out, give it to yourself. The
That's right.
quality of time you have with your children will be so much better.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And that's, lifelong practice, taking care of ourselves first. It's a lifelong practice. As
What?
bad as we want to, put everybody else, help them with their oxygen masks, we have to figure out ours first. So, well, good. Oh, go
I
ahead.
think that that's definitely probably the number one thing is that we don't self-resource ourselves. And
Right.
especially as women, I say this as a woman,
Men
we
too.
naturally will give and give and give. And so it's something that we have
Men
to work
too. We
against.
want to, we want to provide. We want to show, we want to
Yeah.
be on top, and we want to don't look weak, or what have you. And yeah, I mean, even for a man that, taking care of ourselves first can feel so selfish. It goes for any parent,
Right.
man or woman that, I feel like, and I'll just kind of end with this. I've noticed it about myself at times and just people around me. But the thing like travel sports is a great, I think, example for me and my own experience, where you want to say yes to every training and every additional this and every game you get invited to, and drive to St. Louis for one game, 8 hours, we want to do this, and we know inside it will drain us. We know inside that I need to take some time for myself, but yet we feel like we're depriving our children of an opportunity. And you're totally right. At the end of the day, it's okay. We're going to be okay. We're safe if we take care of ourselves. We're not committing any kind of parental felony taking care of ourselves because we want a good, we want to be a good parent the next day or the rest of the day. If we have to go take 15 minutes and cool our jets a little bit, or get something to eat, or take a 30-minute power nap or whatever. Those are just some of the
Let
things
me
I
give you just
do
a
when I'm
really
getting
quick
out there.
example. Let
If
me
I'm
give
hungry, I eat. If I'm a little angry, I kind of, call somebody. If I'm tired, try to get some rest, take a nap, focus on my sleep that much better. And you're totally right. Those small wins for me are huge improvements.
Yeah, one quick example. This week I worked with one of my clients, and last week she was at her wit's end. She was in that sympathetic nervous state, couldn't think,
Mm.
couldn't get to her executive functioning, wasn't sleeping, crying all the time. It's a high conflict divorce going on right now. And they were going to do an exchange. So she'd be kid free all week. And she's like, I've got to do all these papers and I've got to do, all of these next steps. And blah, blah. And I said, nope.
Yeah.
The only thing you're going to do this week is you're going to rest, you're going to sleep, and that's it. You're going to feed yourself and you're going to rest. And she's like, I don't know, just do it. You're not doing any paperwork this week. You're not doing any of these steps.
Hmm.
And she'd been in this state for a while. She did it. She did the whole week of just resting and feed. She was like a different person this week.
Sure,
She's
sure.
like, I just got those papers out in like no time at all. And I did this
Give
and
ourselves the pat on the back we're looking for, right? Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. No one's
Yeah.
gonna come save us. We gotta do that ourselves, Give
Oh,
our
good point.
give
Yeah.
ourselves a big giant hug every day and every night. We did well. We made it another day. So well, good. Well, we ran over a little bit. I knew we kind of would because have such great material today. Um, uh, this is how you can get in touch with us.
Yeah.
We're gonna stick around a few minutes for some questions. Questions come up, I'll stick around. But there's some QR codes on your screen. So these are LinkedIn profiles of for both Beth and I. Great way to connect with us. If you don't have LinkedIn, certainly shoot us an email, or give us a call, something like that, and we'll be happy to get in touch with you. Again, if you're watching this as a replay today, thanks for taking the time. We hope you got a lot out of it. And we're certainly here. Please feel free to treat us as a resource. No strings attached. We know this is a really, it's a difficult time, whatever stage you're in. And but yeah, we'll hang around and we'll open it up for questions. We have Andre on the line too, of course. So Andre, I don't know if you want to, if there are any questions compiled or anything like that, we'll stick around and we'll hang out for him.
No questions. There's Daryl.
We
Say
gave
hi to Daryl and Nanette. Yeah. Awesome.
Feel free to
Thanks.
pop any in the chat if you have any. But I guess Beth, while we have you here, what was that monumental moment that you saw when you switched from your housing situation after those 3 years with your
Oh,
kids?
yeah. So, you know, that's a great question. Do you mean what happened after we stopped doing nesting?
Yeah, like all the positives and
Yeah, I think, so just to backtrack a little bit, we tried to get divorced twice, and the first was so horrific, and it was so high conflict on, that we put a stop to it, took a break, went back and did it, and we actually became really good co-parents. And I think that flexibility and understanding and trust came. And, the little things that would just drive you nuts didn't. But I think that we learned how to co parent by keeping the children first. And I felt like that time when we were together really taught us how to back one another up. Right. And then when we were on our own and in our own houses, there was a trust in the children with both of their parents. And that was, they knew that we could be together and that we would always be a family in some senses. And so, like when our son graduated high school, we had a really big party. His dad was there. We co-hosted it. It wasn't uncomfortable. It just went from high conflict to no conflict. And, we were able to work together for the good of the children. And I'll tell you, the work being on us, instead of the kids having to bear that, I think it was a lot easier for them.
Great
Great
question.
question. Yeah, great
Yeah,
question.
really good question. Well, I don't see any more coming through.
Yep.
Andrea, did you field any more questions via email, offline, or anything?
No, I think that's all for me
Okay,
right now.
great. Okay. Well, great session this morning. Beth, thank you so much again for getting
It
up
was so
early
much
on
fun.
West Coast time
Yeah,
and rolling through this with us. It's been a pleasure as always.
thank you.
And everybody, thank you so much for taking time out of your Saturday morning, to be here with us too. Yeah, we greatly appreciate that. And boy, whatever stage you're in right now, you just have just general questions, please don't hesitate to reach out, to either one of us. Um,
Absolutely.
we'll be happy to, happy to give you, give you what you're looking for. And until next month, second Saturday next month, which I believe I will be hosting that one. We'll be doing a financial piece next month. So definitely stay tuned for that. Typically the second Saturday schedule is we do I'll have on one legal guest, one kind of more behavioral divorce coach, mediator type guest, and then we'll do the financial piece. So I'll be doing the financial piece next month. We'll be doing some big pitfalls to try to avoid things that come up in the divorce process with money. So it'll be a great time. So if any of you all want to join us again, just keep looking out for the registration links. You can always find these on my website, my LinkedIn. Beth is always, she's got her stuff out there too. Jump on one of her. You do a podcast too, Beth, or you
Not,
do another?
not
You
yet.
do.
That
Oh,
we'll
not
have.
yet. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we were talking about that last time, but I know you've
Mhm.
got great content. So definitely go look up Beth. So, anyways, go out there. I hope wonderful things happen to everybody today and enjoy the rest of your Saturday, and we'll see you next time. Thanks again, Beth. Appreciate it.
Bye.